All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Non-Legends of Wrestling. This episode is going to be Top Guys. This is a parody of the old show, and on our panel we have the non-legend first to my left, uh, Nick Durst. How are you, Nick?
Well, how fitting to talk about top guys, and you get three top guys here to talk about it. It makes
Yes,
perfect sense
yes.
to me.
All right, and over to my right we have from Parts Unknown, JJF.
How's it going?
Are you not going to show your face today, JJF?
I'm in my happy place, Frank. I am now the new owner of the Randy Rhoads tribute album. So I'm in a good place right now.
Okay.
Let's get this going.
This guy he's got his man cave going
The
in.
new face of fear. That's why I can't show it. I'll scare off the viewers.
So
I'm growing my Doctor Strange beard.
yes, everything's the stars are aligning for JJF.
They
All right.
are.
Yes.
They'll be aligning even more in June when my son arrives.
Yes, so hopefully you could get we'll give him a nice WrestleMania.
Oh no! If I have my way, my son will never know what wrestling is.
He probably won't like it. How about that?
I hope so.
A lot of kids don't like it.
Good.
Anyway, so let's talk about today's topic is the top guys, and let's talk about first like the top guys from the past and the top guys versus modern top guys. Of course, the old days, top guys were in each territory. There wasn't really one top guy like there is now in the WWE. Nick, you just mentioned Bruno Sammartino. We'll stick to, I guess, WWE. The guy, he was champion for 8 years, right?
Yep.
8 years, yeah. Five. I think he did. I think he did 5 years, and then he did another three. And they would have, and he had to like really tell them like please, I can't do it no more. And and then of course I wouldn't say Bob Backlund wasn't a top guy. I don't know. People he gets
He had the belt long enough to be considered.
He was the top guy. But see, James, that's what I tell you. Bob Backlund. You know how many times Bob Backlund used to wrestle like at Madison Square Garden, like in the middle of the show, and like the main event would be like Sergeant Slaughter and Pat Patterson or Morocco and Snooker. But but Bob
There's
Backlund.
also two blood feuds. I mean, the boot camp match with Pat Patterson and Slaughter. People still talk about that.
Right,
and then,
right.
of course, you mentioned Snooker jumping off the cage onto Morocco.
Right, but I'm saying you see, even now, the main event used to be the best storyline. Just because the champion fights wrestles in the middle doesn't really mean anything. But anyway, a lot of people got mad at him because I told you of Superstars, because Superstar was going to blow up. But anyway, so we move on to I Am a Real American, Hulk Hogan, and
To whom, without, we would not even be discussing this topic.
Right?
yeah, I think so. A lot of people regard him as the greatest wrestler of all time. And if you think Hogan couldn't wrestle, he could wrestle. He just in WWE.
He adjusted his style to the audience he wrestled.
Yeah,
That is one thing, and I have no shame in admitting, for many years, I could not stand the sight of Hulk Hogan. However, I have come around to the understanding that he revolutionized two different eras of the business, and
well,
without him, I shudder to think what this business would look like.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. There wouldn't be a business right now because without Hogan, there's no '80s wrestling boom. There's no '90s Monday Night Wars. There's no Raw. There's no SmackDown. There was no Nitro. There's no pay-per-views. There's no network. There's nothing. It's just
To be fair, and I think Frank will back me on this, the only other guy that Vince could have went with mainstream that would have done well would have been Dusty Rhodes, because Dusty was an insanely popular, drew massive amounts of money as a top baby face. Vince could have gone with him. They would have maybe not done just as good, maybe a little less as good as Hogan, but Hulk just had a charisma that you either have or you don't.
Well,
And
James, you know what really helped wrestling and Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan being in Rocky 3. I know you're a big
that
movie.
got him noticed. That's what got him his break.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
originally, Vince's father did not want Hulk to do that. He didn't want him to do that. So Hulk did the Rocky movie, was in the AWA for quite some time, was originally a heel, but then he just blew up. And, you know, most people don't realize hulk-a-mania wasn't born in the WWF. It was born in the AWA. And, you know, with Hulk's feud at that time with Bobby Heenan and Nick Bockwinkel, you have to also remember, you know, I think a lot of people look past, you know, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but WrestleMania 3, it wasn't just Hulk and Andre. Why did Andre garner the hatred that he did at that time? It was because of who his manager was. So Bobby the Brain Heenan was just as big a part of Hulk blowing up as anyone, because Bobby was managing all of those heels that Hulk was going up against. And of course you have Roddy Piper, who, you know, he was kicking Cyndi Lauper, he was beating up Dave Wolf.
That was WrestleMania. That was WrestleMania 1. For WrestleMania 3, I heard that Bobby Heenan said Vince gave him his pay for WrestleMania 3. He said he retired. He could have retired off of that pay. And then Hogan, they said I think he made over $1 million for WrestleMania 3, and what he made was more than the whole card combined.
And so did Andre.
No. Hogan got paid. What Hogan got paid was more than
everybody else combined.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, though. I'm not so sure about. I think Andre and Hulk were close in the pay department, because Andre was doing a humongous favor for Vince. Because originally Andre, he wasn't even going to be at that event because he was not well. He was looking to go for the back surgery. But when Vince convinced him to come back for this.
He had to do it. Time was running out. He had to do it. Yeah, but the God, listen, Hogan probably made like $2 million for that thing, at least.
The only match that could have been bigger and made more money is when you had the top guy in Hogan versus the top guy for the other promotion, Ric Flair, in the same company, and they didn't even wrestle at WrestleMania when they were supposed to.
That was, I think, was a very big missed opportunity for Hulk and for the WWE.
Well, you know what? That match, when Flair, I remember when Flair came over, I was psyched because he actually brought the belt from WCW. Right. I thought that was going to be the dream match. Listen, when I was a kid before cable, I used to follow the NWA, AWA. I used to go to my corner store, and like I was like 10 years old and just read the magazines, and I was like, wow, who are these guys? And I used to see blood on Dusty Rhodes. So when Ric Flair was like, it was like DC. It was like DC or Marvel. Ric Flair was like,
yeah, it was like you know, Superman versus the Hulk.
Yeah. You had in the WWE universe, you had the Hulk Hogan. He was the greatest champion, and then everything else, Ric Flair was the champion. So when he came, you thought it was going to be like that dream match. It just never. I don't know. It just never caught on. It was just never.
Well, they announced it, and then they changed it around.
Yeah, you know what? Because even before that, it wasn't making money. They said they weren't even selling out. What they said in one of the shoot interviews was that I guess Pat Patterson and Vince and Bruce Pritchard, they were shocked that they couldn't sell out with Hulk Hogan and Flair. So that's why they probably never did. The best match was with Flair and Macho Man in WWE.
Well, I always maintain, and I know that in some people's eyes he wasn't a franchise guy. I felt that Randy Macho Man Savage was every bit the performer of Hulk Hogan, because when Hulk went to do other movies and Savage was the champion, they didn't lose profit. If anything, they maintained or got better. So I think that Savage...
Well, no, they didn't get better, but
I don't think that Savage was a lesser talent of Hulk, because otherwise there would have been a massive drop-off.
Well, listen, you gotta consider that Hulk charged up wrestling. So even if Hogan was gone for 6 months, 7 months, you know, it'd be hard for Macho to lose it. But I guess that answers your question of who they would have went with had it not been for Hogan, because regardless, Macho Man would have came to WWF
Maybe I am biased because he is my third favorite. I just feel that Macho Man was just as good.
Oh
as
yeah,
Hulk.
yeah. No, no. Listen, if Hulk Hogan would have broke his leg in 1985, Macho Man would have been the face of the company. He was that popular.
How ridiculous is it to think that around 1994, most people thought those two guys were done, and then they go to WCW and start.
But it wasn't that they were done. They just had a long run. I mean, what you mean physically they were done?
Oh, like Macho Man was doing commentary. Whoever was writing the shows thought
because I think Nick, that because in the WWF there was nothing more for those guys to do. The stars could not have aligned more perfect for them to go to WCW. And since we're still on the subject of Hogan, that metamorphosizes into when Hulk came to WCW. When he came in with the red and yellow, there was some good fanfare at first, but that Southern wrestling crowd really didn't take to Hulk. And it took them a while to realize that because by Kevin Nash's own admission, because he's had conversations with Hulk about this, he was going to the ring against a lot of guys in WCW, and he was getting booed.
Well, it even started in late '93, '93 when he was still in WWE. They now say it was because of the steroid. It was because of the steroid scandal, and plus, listen, listen. I'm telling you, I got sick of Hulk Hogan in 1988, '89. I mean, after when I really got sick of him, I had it. I was officially done with Hogan after the match with Ultimate Warrior, because that's it. I mean, like what else is there for Hogan to do? What is he going to do? And that's why I wrote before when the Undertaker beat Hogan. What was that? Survivor Series?
Survivor Series '91, the greatest challenge.
People cheered because they had enough of Hogan. So no matter, and I guess this fits this episode for Top Guys. No matter how popular and how universally over, wrestlers. Everybody has a shelf life. People get bored.
Eventually people do get bored. I'm sure that if Austin was around for too long, people would have got sick of him eventually.
They did. Natural. They did, and we'll talk about him.
Well, let me ask you guys about Hogan. He's been, he had a little scandal. He's been gone for a while. Do you think he's going to be back this year or next year, WWE? What's happening?
I hope they mend the fence with him, and I'm not trying to take this down a morbid.
I don't think there's any bad blood with WWE's behalf. I think they're just worried about.
Listen, it's a sticky situation because look, every time, just look. I keep telling James about the PC thing. You can't. If God forbid, WWE, but for whatever reason, if somebody sneezes the wrong way and they get bad negative press and it becomes a major story, they're going to take a big hit. They can't afford it. So if they bring Hogan back. What if somebody says, "Oh, look, they brought back the racist Hogan"? I mean, even though like the fans might cheer, but like you can't trust the media.
I guess WWE needs to at some point. I hope that one day this company gets away from the PC nonsense because the fact remains, without Hulk Hogan, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah, I know, but listen.
And to finish it, I do hope that they do mend the fence with him because one day Hulk Hogan will no longer be with us, and I would be. It's just like with the Macho Man. They didn't mend the fence with Savage, and they didn't do right with him until he died, and that's a tragedy. And as much as, even though I haven't been a fan of Hogan for as long as you guys have, because I never really liked him even as a kid, I hope they do mend the fence with him because Hulk Hogan is wrestling. He is the WWE. So
yeah, I agree, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and then he goes to WCW. And when the fans got tired of Hulk, and then they bring in Scott Hall and Kevin Nash from the WWF, Hulk Hogan does the unthinkable,
right? So so right.
Metamorphosizes into, in my opinion, the greatest wrestling villain. Because Vince McMahon as a character is the greatest villain, right. But as a wrestler, there is no greater villain.
Hogan couldn't stop getting cheered, though. I don't know. People loved Hollywood Hogan.
They loved it because it was a breath of fresh air.
It was cool.
Listen, I remember when Hogan used to do like something dastardly, and I would be like, "Yeah!" Like I would, because it was just like it's so funny watching Hogan
play the bad guy. Now, for me as a kid, I never liked Hulk because I always liked the Macho Man. That was my first favorite. When I first started watching wrestling, Macho was my favorite. So it's only natural that when Hulk turned heel, who did he first attack? It was the Macho Man.
Right. That was symbolic. Yeah, I caught that.
And I feel that Hulk, because he did that, and I think Nick will agree with me on this, because he did that, it made everyone who was watching the WWE go, what the fuck? They turned, they started watching Nitro, and they were interested. They were so interested, they were willing to not change channels and just watch Nitro. And I can tell you, because back then, my father was a WCW guy. He wasn't watching Raw. He was watching WCW.
Well, me personally, like, I would always watch SmackDown, but I would, like, obviously I was young, so I would watch Nitro because it started an hour earlier, and you know it was just better at the time.
Listen, that was just a magical thing. I remember. I think James, I told you this story. I stopped watching wrestling completely from like 1992 to 1996. And I remember just flicking the channels with my ex-girlfriend and just accidentally popping up on TNT and seeing Scott Hall. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And each week you just be intrigued, and before you know it, it just took off. And it wasn't only me; it was a lot of people. So then after that, of course, then Hogan does make his return back to WWE as part of the NWO. And it says, "No Way Out" on February 2002, Hogan returned to WWF, returning as leader of the original NWO with Scott Hall. The three got into confrontation with The Rock and cost Stone Cold the chance of becoming undisputed champion against Chris Jericho at the main event. The NWO feuded with both Austin and The Rock. Hogan accepted The Rock's challenge to a match at WrestleMania 18, where Hogan asked Hall and Nash not to fear, wants to defeat The Rock by himself. Do you remember any of this?
I remember all of it.
Okay, briefly, what was your...
Well, when the NWO came in, see, 12-year-old me at that time, I always wanted to see Undertaker fight with the NWO because I loved watching Sting fight with them. And in my head, I'm saying, oh, what if they bury the Undertaker and he comes back as the dead man because he was still the biker at that time? Now, remember, this is 12-year-old me who knows nothing about the business. I wanted to see Undertaker fight Hulk as Hollywood Hulk Hogan so badly because that to me was always, I always imagined like Scott Hall being put on the Undertaker symbol, Kevin Nash being carried away by the Druids, and then Hulk's the only one left, and then Taker takes him out. But I remember my father telling me, oh, Christ, Hulk's in the WWF. Him and Austin gotta hook it up. To this day, my dad always tells me that match is, you know, and you guys know I always wanted to see Taker and Sting. No match would have drawn more money, would have had more interest than Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin. No other match would have been bigger, and neither of those two guys are even in my top 10 favorites.
Well, WrestleMania 18, and this is what I'm going to say because you two always disagree on this. It didn't matter that The Rock and Hogan weren't the main event. That was the match. Everyone still tuned in for that match. It was an incredible match. Probably, in my opinion, forget about just like the ring work, the greatest WrestleMania match because of the environment. Everyone was going crazy. And to me, that's still a huge match. And it was very, very enjoyable.
Yes.
No, it was
That's when you knew. That's when you knew that something special was going to happen. And the beginning, that face-off, when it was basically, you could see the crowd.
it was more like Tyson and Joe Frazier. If it was Tyson and Ali, that would have been. Listen, I'm not knocking The Rock because The Rock is a megastar. The Rock is one of the all-time greats. He's on that count on one hand list. But there is a humongous difference between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3.
Rock's more popular, so that's why. But the reason the match didn't happen.
No, he's not.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. What do you mean?
When they wrestled at the same time, Austin was more popular. Now The Rock was more popular because he's been in Hollywood for almost, let's see, he left for Hollywood full-time in 2004. He had a lot of time in Hollywood.
All right, we'll talk about them too. We'll talk about.
I want to make a point on Austin Hogan. Well, it didn't happen. You know why? Because Steve Austin, one of the most selfish top guys in the history of business, refused to do the match. Refused.
Because Hulk wasn't going to do the job.
That's the thing. That's why I keep telling you, dream matches.
But why? But think about this, and we'll leave this question in the air. No one has to answer this. Why was Hulk willing to put over The Rock, but he wasn't willing to put over Austin? That is something that we all internally, you don't have to answer it on the air.
The Rock was still going to be sticking around. Austin was at his end,
and maybe The Rock at that particular time, The Rock wasn't Austin. We'll talk about Austin a little bit, but listen, that's why I say dream matches. Sometimes they're better off on paper, just like we talked about with Hogan and Flair. Sometimes the styles don't mesh, and just sometimes behind the scenes, when you get two big egos like that, you can't make those guys do anything. They have creative control of their characters, and they're not going to do it.
At the end of the day, Hulk Hogan is going to go down in history as possibly the greatest attraction the business has ever seen. He is a household name in every sense of the word. He is a franchise guy that changed the game and made people around him better.
All right, let me ask you a question. Since Hogan was really the first
megastar, global
megastar to get crossover,
he transcended the business.
Do you think that's important for do you think that's a must for a top guy?
Hugely important.
It's not transcending the business. Is not something
not transcending, but crossing over to the main.
Crossing over into the everyday public pop culture.
Talk shows.
It depends on what you mean by crossing over.
Talk shows, magazines.
If by crossing over you mean bringing in eyeballs to the product,
right?
Bringing more eyeballs, then yeah.
Yeah, James, that's do you do talk shows, magazines,
television shows?
That's not what I guess we have different perspectives.
No, that's bringing in more eyes.
Right, but like Frank, how many times did Hogan in the '90s go on Jay Leno with his title belt?
Forget the '90s. How about
the '80s?
Listen, let me tell you something. WrestleMania 1. Mr. T, I know you guys definitely Mr. T, when he was on Rocky 3, he started off on Rocky 3. Also, that movie, if Rocky 3 is like
careers.
Well, yeah, that movie started. It was launched the wrestling boom. Mr. T was on like the most popular show.
The
18. But Mr. T took off. He had his own cereal. He had his own cartoon, and then they got together. Let me tell you, the road to WrestleMania 1. Mr. T and Hulk Hogan. Let me tell you, when I say back then there was only like 6 channels. Everybody had 6 channels: channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, and 11.
All right.
They were on every channel, so either in the morning, the afternoon, at night. Johnny Carson, Letterman, Good Morning America. They were on every magazine, MTV.
Hulk Hogan to this day is the only wrestler to ever be featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
The first Sports Illustrated, but those two, Mr. T and Hulk Hogan, at that moment leading up to WrestleMania, you couldn't turn anywhere without seeing.
They should have did WrestleMania in 2007 back at Chase Stadium before it closed.
Maybe they should have. They should have.
That would have been great.
They should have did it outside. Look at they outgrew Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden was.
I think it's a shame that they haven't done WrestleMania at the Garden, because the Garden,
they lose money. They'll
lose money now.
Yeah, they'll lose money. The Garden holds 18,000.
They should WrestleMania again. Well, they're going to do it again in MetLife. That's going to be their new New York every 10-year home.
Yeah. That replaces Madison Square Garden. All right, so Hulk Hogan definitely is the Babe Ruth of top guys. Then we move on to next.
He's the Barry Bonds of wrestling.
Stone Cold, who he said was one of the most selfish, and who isn't, I guess. And
you want to talk about selfishness? You're going to tell me Hulk wasn't selfish?
Yeah, I just said
they all are.
Well,
you got to be.
Hulk put a lot of guys over.
Yeah,
Austin didn't.
Listen, Hogan said he would have put over anybody. It's just that listen, when
Hogan,
no. When Hogan came back, he got the belt.
He came back, yeah.
In that period, those 6,
I'm saying, like, even during his career, he put over Savage, Ultimate Warrior, Goldberg.
He never put over the Macho Man. That's the reason I always hated him. He never lost to the Macho Man. Right. Believe me, if he did, that date would be tattooed on me because I love Randy Savage.
Well, yeah, and he also
Big Show, Goldberg, they all lost to him.
Yeah, he does business because he knows.
I mean, he lost to all of them. He knows when there's a big star that they can make money.
Yeah, because he's down the road, he's only going to make money. But then, what really launched Austin was that segment with Mike Tyson. Do you guys?
What launched Steve Austin?
I know, we know the 316, but I'm just saying, really.
I wasn't even going to say the 316 thing.
No, I'm saying what really launched the Austin and WWE was that segment with Mike Tyson. That really like set.
By the time Austin got to Tyson, he had built up such a rapport with the audience. He became more popular after his neck injury because the fans were so rabid for him already. He was the guy people wanted to see, and they were playing out what was going on, that they didn't really want him to wrestle because he was hurt. They allowed that to play out on television.
Because then he came back and he started doing the segment. He was reduced.
He was stunning every single member of who represented the WWF. He stunned King, stunned Sergeant Slaughter, stunned JR, and when it got to Vince, which was, we talked about the Garden. Where did it happen? When he finally took Vince out and stunned him, Madison Square Garden exploded.
Yeah, because that was the first time. That was the first time, and they were waiting.
First time he ever stunned Vince. And the reason, and I'm going to give you, I'm sure the both of you already know this. The reason that Austin was able to get as popular as he did was because he identified with every single person in the stands. Hulk Hogan was the guy that kids wanted to aspire to be, that a lot of people thought, oh, he's an inspirational figure. The Rock was just the coolest guy in the room. So that was a proponent of it. With Austin, what makes him stand out more than the rest is that every single person in the audience could identify with him, because every one of us has had to deal with a boss who was domineering, a pain in the ass, and all you want to do is punch him in the mouth, tell him to fuck off, and get away with it. Austin did it.
Well, obviously, Austin owes a lot of his success to Vince, but the other reason that he's successful is because they kept shoving him in our face. All you would see is Austin stunning every single person, beating everybody.
Guess what?
He's the only three-time winner of the Royal Rumble. You
can't really quantify it, Nicholas, as shoving it in people's face if he's who everyone's calling for. I apologize, but you were in the minority. The majority.
Vince tricked you into loving him.
No, listen, in the beginning, when you heard the glass crack, that was like one of the best sounds.
Nobody worships the Undertaker more than me. He had no business being above Steve Austin, because without Stone Cold Steve Austin, the WWF would not be around. That is where I think you and I completely disagree. This company would not even exist right now if they continued to try to get Austin booed. I'm going to quote Jim Ross from one of the WWE DVDs. Austin became the anti-hero that we tried everything we could to make him the top villain. But every week we heard more and more cheers. The consumer made the decision, and they made the right decision.
Yeah, but it's easy to make the decision when the reaction is such a strong positive one. That's sure money. That just tells you there's sure money. But unlike Roman Reigns say, when the reaction is boo, you're not guaranteed to getting the boo to a cheer. You understand? That's the big difference. But Nick, what was your you said what was your reaction to Stone Cold? You weren't a Stone Cold guy?
No, I loved Rock, loved Vince, loved Shane. Yeah, love the corporate party over there.
So Stone Cold was just too much every week. You felt like Stone Cold.
Every week. I mean, I remember seeing endings to SmackDown or Raw where Austin literally stunned Rock, Undertaker, Kane,
everybody.
Chris Jericho, and Kurt Angle. That's terrible to kill off all your other top guys in one person.
It didn't look good, but here,
wasn't there one time in a storyline where like something happened on the pay-per-view and Vince got mad at Austin, so the next time on Raw, Austin had to face everybody on the roster and he beat everybody?
Oh yeah,
that's ridiculous.
But yeah, I mentioned before how during that invasion, the invasion segment, he literally destroyed. He literally took out 2 rosters of
right. The whole invasion angle, James. You always talk about how it was poorly booked. It's because of Austin, because they made it all about him.
Oh my God, I can't believe. I'm so glad that this is being recorded. I could see, and looking at your face, that's how I know you're a troll, bro.
No, he's not. He's just
yes, he is. How was you want to know why the invasion was shit? Because your hero Vince was a cheapskate and didn't want to pay the contracts to the real stars.
From the real stars, James, let me ask you a question. Let's say your company right now got bought, and you had the option to either keep your salary right now for 2 years and not have to work and keep the salary, or you keep
Vince could have bought those contracts, bro. He could have bought those contracts.
Yeah, but that was confirmed. Would you rather take 2 years off and not work but still get paid, or would you rather work and get paid?
Vince could have bought those contracts. He had the option to, and he chose not to.
But James,
not understanding, James.
Yeah, what makes you think that all those guys want to?
Believe me, if they were getting shelled out, if their contracts were purchased by Vince, they were owned by Turner Broadcasting. Vince could have bought those contracts. He chose not to.
Even if he bought them, there was no guarantee they came. They didn't have to come work.
Yeah,
if James would have bought their contracts, they would have.
James, you got to understand those contracts were for 150 days, and they probably had crazy creative control on those contracts.
I understand that, but if you're going to do an invasion angle with WCW, you cannot do that story without Hall, Nash, and Hulk Hogan.
But listen, I don't want to get onto this, but James, listen.
No, I'm not getting onto it. But Nick is blaming the invasion. I'm answering what Durst is.
Nick, this is another.
He's blaming the invasion.
Next episode, the invasion.
No, it was a flop because you didn't have the names available.
Yeah, I know. Listen, this is
back to Austin. They could have worked, but they made Austin join the WCW team with Angle, and then he ended up screwing that team for WWE to win. It didn't make sense.
It made no sense for Austin to even be on that side because he got fired by WCW over the telephone.
Right.
It made no logical sense for him to even consider joining them.
Because they did that because they had to give WCW a star power. But anyway, yeah, let's play a quick segment.
And here I am, a redneck from South Texas who happens to have a belt. And a redneck that looks good in a suit. You see the light, JR. That's I said to myself, this is what I said to myself in that jail cell. I said, no one could hear me. I said, Steve, if you think you can beat Vince McMahon, give me a hell yeah. And what I had. But like I said, I was in a jail cell, and I had to say, Steve, hell no, you can't beat Vince McMahon. Right. It's like a stallion being gelded. What? You got to understand the power that a Vince McMahon has, the control, and everything that goes with it. So, realizing all that, and I'm not going to grovel for you because I'm bending my back as it is. Right. So, what I'd like to do
it's still a work in progress. Is everybody there with me?
Listen,
I hear you.
Austin, I personally loved when Vince became champion. That was a great storyline. But I remember the whole Rumble thing where it was down to like Vince and Austin, and The Rock came out, was like, just bring it, it's going to be us, and then Vince won. But anyway.
And then let's not forget Austin and the next guy we'll talk about, The Rock.
Right.
They headlined 3 WrestleManias.
Right.
They headlined 2.
No, 3.
Right.
They headlined 3.
They wrestled at 3. They closed 2. When you're headlining, you're closed.
Oh, well, which one was which one did they close out?
They closed out 15 and 17.
And which is the one that The Rock won?
The Rock won the last one,
19.
which was at 19 in the middle of WrestleMania 19.
Who closed out that show?
Probably
Brock
Triple H.
Lesnar and Kurt Angle,
I don't know why they did that.
because it was for the WWE Championship. That's why.
Yeah, but I
And
just
Brock won the Royal Rumble. Back then, when you won the Rumble, you actually headlined WrestleMania.
yeah. Today I heard today. What's that chick? Ivory. She said that was backstage. Kurt Angle said that was one of the worst matches he ever had in his life. Because
Well, that's also because he was in severe need of neck surgery.
And Lesnar almost broke his neck.
Kurt was originally supposed to drop the belt to Lesnar on a SmackDown, but, for whatever reason, Kurt said, you know what, I'll just do the match. I mean, I felt the match was enjoyable, but that's neither here nor there. But listen, regardless of what he says, regardless of what Nick says, Stone Cold Steve Austin is on equal footing with Hulk Hogan. Because without Austin, the WWF dies. Without The Rock, they survive.
I'll say he maybe not equal footing, but for 3 years, yes, because he not only did he not only was he responsible for WWE winning the ratings war, but the merchandise that Austin sold. I mean,
how could you say he's on equal footing? There wouldn't be an Austin without Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, well, listen, a lot of people don't realize Hogan, when they talk about runs like John Cena's run, Hogan had like over a 20-year run. His run went from 1983 to like really 2005.
Right.
If you think about it, it did. It was strong almost every year.
Another thing I hate about
Well, I
Austin,
guess you could say Austin's Lou Gehrig. That's still pretty damn good to be. Good company to be in.
Yeah. Listen, oh no, Austin's not. Austin. They say Austin drew the most money ever. He
You adjust everything for you adjust everything for inflation. Austin and Hulk and The Rock, they're pretty on equal footing.
Hogan,
three of them.
Hogan and Austin, I think, are on the show.
the hulk-a-mania shirt is like the biggest selling shirt ever.
Should we end it here? And make
I want to end it with this on Austin.
Let's make a part.
The thing I hate most about Austin is that his hearing problem actually ruins wrestling now, because all you got to hear is what after everybody talks.
Because listen, because that's
get the guy hearing it. Jeez.
What? No, because listen, since we'll make a part two, we'll end part one here because we're running long on time. Because once his body broke down and he couldn't do what he had to do. Like Vince said, they did everything with him. They made him the sheriff. They made him. There was backstage segments with Kurt Angle and Deborah.
I thought that him and Bischoff as playing off each other was hysterical.
Yeah, the main reason I can't say Austin is on the same level as Hogan is just that he only had a 3-year run.
Really.
Fair argument to make. I mean,
peak 3-year run. But yeah, those I enjoyed those segments of Kurt Angle when he gets him the little guitar and the little cowboy hat. That's
my favorite segment ever with Steve Austin. Probably, God, because there were so many.
While you think about that, a little quick fact that I heard. See, when we talking about that confrontation with Austin and Mike Tyson, did you know that? There was talks of luring Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan from WCW, and having him wrestle Mike Tyson.
I did not know about that.
They were actually talking about it, and Mike Tyson, he loved Hulk Hogan, but he was scared. He was like, I ain't letting that. I ain't letting him suplex me. But that was Bruce Prichard talked about that. That was in the works. What was it, 1998, of Hulk Hogan coming back to WWF for a match against Tyson at WrestleMania.
All right. My favorite Austin moment ever, probably the beer truck.
Oh yeah, that's classic.
Absolute classic. And my favorite match with Austin, when he beat The Undertaker in Madison Square Garden. Classic.
What was that?
That was the Highway to Hell.
Okay.
SummerSlam 98, Madison Square Garden. Austin and The Undertaker beat the ever-loving fuck out of each other in front of a sold-out crowd. Austin beat him with the stunner. Taker handed him the belt and walked away. What a match. 8-year-old me hated Austin that night, but not because I want to take her to be champ, but
All right.
what a match!
All right, so Nick, I get you definitely will not be popping a Steve Weiser. So all right, we're gonna end it here, part one, and then hopefully tomorrow or this week we'll make part two of Top Guys. So for all of you at home and for the non-legends on the panel, thank you, and we'll see you in part two of Top Guys.